Welcome back to the Gutshot Podcast. I'm Shamsul, aka Sam, with my friend Syed Akbar.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Today, I believe we're going to have a cracker of a conversation to share with you all. But before that, we want you to know that we have a real uptrend in our Gutshot community, which has truly exploded lately. The comment section has been cracking. For a 6-month-old channel, we are thankful to you, our viewers. However, 90% of our viewers are not subscribed. Please very much smash that button, subscribe, so that we can spread this conversation throughout the nation. Yeah, we have now approximately 1,888 subs in 6 months. Let's target for 5,000 subscribers by end of March. Let's try and do that. Get more people to be involved in our interesting conversations. Gutshot, what we want to do is grow it further and be a catalyst for change. Yes, Syed? Yep. So let's build this community together around Gutshot with good conversation, intellectual, and hopefully create positive movement. Please promote the channel, get people to subscribe, engage, so we keep growing. Let's build it nationwide and make a difference. So now, back to the episode. Here's our plan today. We have a very simple question. How do we reform the Malaysian Civil Service? Is that too much for us to ask? Syed, with that, I think I'm going to throw it to Syed first. Syed, what say you? Let's open it up. Kick it off, the conversation on this, brother.
Thank you. Everything can be improved. Everything can be done better, quicker, faster, more efficient, especially the civil service. And the civil service is especially important for us at this stage of our development. We're still a young country, 60 over years old. The civil service can often make or break a country. If we have a good, strong civil service, efficient civil service, the country can weather a lot of storms. Meaning the country can weather a lot of political mistakes, and policy mistakes. If the civil service is strong and professional, they can still carry things through and produce results, regardless of who is the government in power. Especially in a situation now in this country where political power it changes. It has changed a few times already, and one-term governments, I think, are going to become the norm, the way things are going. So when there's that much change happening in the country, a lot of newbies and a lot of new wannabes, who come into office as politicians and administrators, then they are on the learning curve, right? So this is where a strong and professional civil service is absolutely critical to make sure that the country still performs, everything still works well, regardless of who is learning the ropes of running the country. So civil service is absolutely critical, and of course anything needs to be reformed, especially our civil service. This morning when I came in for this podcast, I opened up my email, and this this news really was a shocker to me. I'd like to share this news a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's not a very good start to a Friday. It's a very terrible start to a Friday, but I'd like to show this on my tablet. This is from Asia Sentinel. I hope the camera can catch this. I'll show this for a short while. Okay. It says Asia Sentinel, Malaysia weathers another military scandal. Very quickly, I'll read it. Procurement, bribery allegations, and a yay culture. By John Berthelsen, dated January 16, 2026. Okay, just a couple of short paragraphs. The Malaysian government, which has been riddled with some of Asia's biggest scandals, including the multi-billion-dollar 1MDB issue, has been saddled with a new one since December, a massive affair dealing with military procurement projects over the period 2023 to 2025, as well as what has become known as the Armed Forces Yay culture. booze and hookers in officers' messes, supposedly outlawed nearly 3 decades ago in a Malay Muslim culture. The Royal Malaysian Air Force has confirmed that 20 officers were directly involved and will face severe disciplinary action. This is the ye part of it. There's the money part right here. So far, that was the Air Force. So far, the Army Chief, I'm not going to mention names, alright, has been forced into early retirement. His predecessor, the former Army Chief, and his 2 wives have been arrested by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission in connection with an alleged cartel that was rigging military procurement tenders. The investigation is said to center on a suspected 26 company cartel. 26 companies. How many companies do you own? 26 company cartel that allegedly bribed senior officers. No, the number of Form 49s you got to sign.
Yeah.
Allegedly bribed senior officers to secure high-value supply and maintenance contracts. The MACC has raided firms, frozen bank accounts, and seized tens of millions of ringgit in cash and luxury items, including Rolex watches, likely only the tip of the iceberg. The probe is said to cover 158 projects, each valued above 500,000 ringgit, and more than 4,500 smaller projects. You need a full ministry to do all this.
That's a reasonable size public listed company.
This has been going on for I don't know for how long.
Yeah.
This is on an industrial scale.
This is systemic.
Systemic, you see. So, okay, this is the armed forces, very sadly, but it's all part of the entire ecosystem of civil service that we have here. So, we need drastic reforms. Corruption is an issue. Corruption is I mean, Dr. Mahathir once said that, 30 years ago, he said corruption is so bad, we do not know who to trust anymore. So, that means we have not really solved the problem of corruption over the past 30 years. But today, I suppose we're going to discuss reforming civil service. But this is a bit of background on the kind of a clutter and the toxic environment that still exists. And within this toxic environment, where does the civil service fit in? Are they going to fit in? Are they going to fit out? So maybe we can discuss that today.
Well, it's interesting when they talk about procurement, tendering. Actually, I started my career when I was in Shell in the procurement section. Okay, so I know procurement very, very well. Here's the interesting lesson that I learned, and I think that if you look at industries and you look at running companies, Elon Musk has said this before. I don't know whether I've quoted this before, that the government is the ultimate corporation, which is because you have to pay them whether you like their services or even if they don't provide you services. So, and this whole bureaucracy is government, as you well put. But here's the thing about whether it's procurement or governance or administration overall, in my opinion, I said, right? Whenever you hear a problem like this, the tendency of people is to actually, the first part is demoralize. The second part is actually they'll put more rules, because when they see a problem, they say, oh, we need a rule to put so that we don't have this problem occur. Well, actually, the truth is actually simpler than that. You want to dismantle the rules. You want to have less rules than what you started with, because then you can identify the problem, and then you can also identify the culprit a lot easier. You want to have a situation where it is easy to actually achieve things, because the harder you make things are, the more opportunity for you to have corruption happen.
If the environment is toxic, if the overall environment is toxic or not conducive, and then you put in more rules, you're creating more problems.
It is a natural tendency for. I mean, of course, we can talk about the culture side of it, right? The culture side of it is something that we have to address. maybe we'll do another episode on the corruption culture. But in terms of civil service reformation, we are talking regulatory, we are talking administrative, we are talking administrative structure and how the philosophy of a civil service should be. And what I'm trying to say is when you brought up that subject, the philosophy should be the less regulation, the better it is for a efficient civil service.
Agree 100%.
Well, I mean, Trump in his first administration, the ratio what he said was for every one new regulation you introduce, you must dismantle 2.
In 2016.
In 2016.
Yeah.
Today, the rule is for every one regulation you want to introduce, you got to dismantle 10.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's, and this is the thing, I think, get the emotion out of it.
And they did it.
And they did. They're doing that,
yeah,
right?
They did it, yeah.
So I think we need to have that kind of philosophy in order to actually make our civil service more efficient, right? Syed, I don't know whether you remember. I mean, you remember or not? I haven't done my passport in a while, but I remember the last time I went a couple of years ago. I was shocked that it actually is worse than it was before during Pak Lah's time. Pak Lah's time, I remember that you can go on that day and the same day you can get the passport back.
Well, you still can, but it takes a long time, or it takes
and then there's a number system,
weird procedures. Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't understand why we've gone backwards.
I can recall I just renewed. My wife and I just renewed our passport a few months back last year.
Yeah.
And then we did once again 5 years ago and another one 10 years ago. So we've done 3 times in 10 years. Huh?
Yeah.
And each time, I recall the first 2 times I had spent almost the whole day at the immigration office waiting for the passport to get done. My last visit a few months ago, the guy said, now everything is online. You apply everything online. You go online and you can fill up your details and everything. But you get a number.
Okay.
But okay, in my case, since I'm a senior citizen now, above 60, I'm 66. So the guy said he could do it for me on the spot, and he just took my passport and he processed it on the spot, and I got my passport done very quickly. Now my wife, who's not a senior citizen, he said she had to go online. But then he said we went there in the morning, but he said that probably the numbers which you refer to, they're probably that's enough. I mean, the quota is up for the day or something like that. Then he made the suggestion that you can go to a shop just outside the immigration office. There was a little corner shop that does photocopies and things like that, and they can assist you. So we went there, and that shop is some sort of an agent of the immigration department, and we paid them a service charge. It's like 30 ringgit or something,
right?
And they got it done. The girl went online, and for my wife, she got the website, and she went in and she did all those whatever, she filled in all the information, and then you just go to the immigration office next door and you pay the money and you pick up your passport after a certain amount of time. So my question is, how come the girl in the shop can get online and get it done within minutes?
Right.
Whereas we would have to, if you did it at home, probably you got to do it. You can't get same day service maybe because all those numbers would have been taken up. You can do it online at home, of course, but I think maybe I don't know how soon you can do it. We only did this once in 5 years. The point is, it's not consistent. 5 years ago and today, it's not. I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. And you've gone online. If you put something online, it should be the easiest to do.
Right.
In fact, you may not even have to go to the immigration department to get your passport. If you can do everything online, you can make payments online. They can always send it by courier to your house, which is what the British have been doing since I don't know when. In Britain, you apply for passport through the post. Why you said just now, for every new regulation, Trump said delete 10. It was 1 to 2. Okay, now we've gone online. It's good, make things easier. But my wife ended up paying 30 ringgit service charges.
Yeah. I don't get it.
The what do you call it? The smell.
Yeah, well, that doesn't smell right, does it?
Yeah, that doesn't pass the smell
It
test.
doesn't pass the smell test.
Why you have to pay 13?
Correct.
You know, if it's online, we just do it.
We're
online.
already paying for the passport.
Okay, if I can't get it today online at home, just tell us. Okay, you'll get it. 3 days from now? You know, or 4 days from now.
Yeah.
Just go to the nearest passport office, or you can choose whichever office and pick up your passport.
Right.
That would solve the problem.
Well, here's the a quick.
So it's not consistent.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether the system going to be there 5 years from now or what's going to happen.
Well, when you talk about government changes, the constant is actually our administrative branch of governance, right? That one, in essence, should be an infrastructure that actually should be the constant but improving. And if you were to ask me, an efficient government or an efficient corporation, okay, must be slimmer and slimmer if it is going to be efficient. And also going back to the last, like you say, when you had to do more, what happens? It opens up opportunity for people to take advantage of the rules that you put in there, that become avenue for corrupt practices. So, but okay, we've touched on that. Let's take our audience on a snap of a macro level, right? Because we need to look at it, right? How big is our civil service? What size should we have that size of a civil service? How much is the government spending on the civil service?
Billions.
Are we is it too much to be able to ask the government, can we shrink the civil service and our operating expenditure? Is that so difficult? People are going AI, we are going digitalization, right? I remember actually, even when I was running procurement in Shell, actually I shrunk my department. You know, the problem with most with entrenched corporate or entrenched bureaucracy is that the bigger your empire, the more money you can claim, the more responsibility you can claim, the bigger your salary package.
Bigger office,
right? Bigger manpower, staffing. You know, I had the other way around. Actually, I shrunk my department by 50%. You know, because why? I instituted before the age of digitalization.
Because you'll get a higher bonus.
Yeah, because I think the people can be deployed to do other things that are more value added.
Yeah, you save money for the company that you're working for.
Yeah, and you get people to do, instead of rudimentary thing, more value added things that actually bring more value to the company.
Multitasking and things.
Correct.
Like that. Yeah.
So I mean, what are we looking at our civil service budget these days?
Well, there's a very long history to our civil service. The question is our civil service bloated or not? For our size population, a country of 34 million people, of course you cannot compare with like China, where the Ministry of Railways has got 4 million over staff. You know. So we are a small country, 34 million people. But I have some figures. I think our civil service, we have, these are old numbers. Federal government has got 1.3 million civil servants, staffing strength in 2025. And the states have got another, I don't know, maybe about 200,000 people in total. So you're talking about 1.5 million people about for federal and state civil service. If you include the police and armed forces, that's, you can throw in another couple of 100,000. So it's about 1.6 million people on government payroll. Payroll.
Okay.
Government. This is important in the classification. Government
right.
Payroll means they will get pensions.
Okay.
That is the ultimate determinant of a civil servant, because there are people who work for government who are not on pension. They could be contract and things like that. So this 1.6 million people are on payroll and they are eligible for pensions, which means we pay for them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll go into those numbers shortly.
Right.
And then you also have the GLCs. GLCs are not on the pension scheme, they're on the EPF scheme. I think they should all be. That's about another million workers in all the GLCs that we have in the country. I think including the state corporations, all at over a million. So you're talking about what? 1.6 and 2.6, about 2.5, 2.6 million people who are dependent on the government ecosystem for their employment. That's a lot of people in a country of 34 million people. But there's a history behind this. Do you remember something called Operasi Isi Penuh?
Okay.
It came out in the 1970s.
Okay.
Dr. Mahathir was not the Prime Minister, but he was the Deputy Prime Minister. I believe he was behind this thing of Operasi Isi Penuh, where they really filled up the civil service with... They went on a recruiting drive, a really crazy recruitment drive, and they increased the civil service numbers of employees sizably. And there was a simple reason behind it, is to create employment.
Right.
Because mostly for Malay Bumi Putras, to create employment, take them into the government service so that they'll have income. So you find that the numbers of the civil service also increase at that time. That's why it was called Operasi Isi Penuh.
Right.
Normally you would have vacancy, then you go and look for the person.
Right.
I think here they found the people first and then started looking for what they should do. So there's some history to this, and our civil service is well, you can say it's bloated. I can give you just my own what do you call this own narrative, what I've seen. You go anywhere to the government service, and you'll see there's a lot of workers, a lot of staff. You go anywhere in any government department, there's always a humongous number of people there. I have my personal experience. At one time, I was a consultant to the NEAC, the National Economic Action Council, and had a nice, huge office in Putrajaya, really big office. And one day they had to change the table, my office table. For some reason, they said they had to change my office table. 9 people came to do it.
Okay, go on.
Including a lady who was a supervisor holding a file, and she was, taking in the boxes and this and that, because she had to make sure that everything was done properly. So I went like, wow, this is like, they really have a lot of stuff just to change a table, That's the nature of the government. And then it's overstuffing. You have to pay salaries for all these people. So we have to question whether is there redundancy or not in the civil service. I think you can argue strongly that the government can do a better job. But as I say, this is political because it creates employment. Otherwise, a lot of people might not get employment. So the civil service is an avenue for the government to give employment to people, and in the peninsula, especially voters, Malay Muslim voters. Can we do with less people in the civil service? Yes and no. Whatever it is, whatever we have done, okay, we filled up the civil service with all these millions of employees. I feel that they can be useful. They can be useful if you train them and make them a really efficient, well-oiled machinery, like shock troops, marching in straight lines, marching forward, not marching backward. They can be used to make the country really productive and really improve the economy of the country. Because the civil service, say what you want, the civil service is organized. They've got a system. They actually have very strict rules, procedures. In every department has rules and procedures. Good or bad depends on whether they implement it or not, whether they follow it or not, whether corruption comes in or not. If the culture is bad, if the culture is toxic, then as you mentioned just now, the more rules you have, the more chances for corruption, the more chances for little Napoleons messing up the place. But if you improve the overall culture, the commitment to duty, integrity levels, always committed doing good, then the civil service can be a tremendous boost for the country, for the economy. So whether it's 1.6 million federal and state civil servants or over 2 million in total, it will be a real asset. It won't drag you down, it'll push you forward. So it's how we make use of this vast army of people we have in the civil service. I know you don't like to hear that, but there are ways of doing it.
Well, Syed, I have a different way of looking at it. Let me put it that way. Coming from a business side point of view, okay, as I've mentioned and quoted, the government is the ultimate corporation. It's no different, okay. And the reason is, therefore, I look at it this way. Actually, I wanna recall for our audience my one period in Shell. I was one of the small group of people selected by the chairman at that particular time. Was Megat Zaharuddin, who was who became later chairman of. He was technical director at that time in Shell. And then he became Maybank's chairman, right? So I was in that team, and that I remember the oil price approximately just before that was around $10 or $12 a barrel, right? Which means our revenue has really shrunk, okay? And what is the answer to that from a company like Shell? We need to be more efficient. We need to be more lean. Okay, no question asked. We're gonna cut 3,000 people. All right, which means that you straight away your mindset is whoever is left, however we're gonna conduct the business, it's got to be better and much more productive, because we've got no choice because our income is smaller, right? So the same way I would approach actually government, okay? Now, where do people that end up not working with the government, like you say, there was an Operasi Isi Penuh, which is, fill them up. That's basically what it is, right?
Fill them up. Fill them up.
Yeah. And the fill them up actually has got no rhyme or reason except to put people under employment, which is basically then you are a welfare state. You're just giving jobs based on the income tax people like you and I pay in the private sector, and I'm giving you salaries that then becomes a burden for the taxpayer. Okay. So if you look at like that, the first thing I would say is actually make up your mind. How efficient do you want your governance to be? So every year I would look at it, especially with digitalization, especially with AI coming, there is no reason for government to increase in terms of manpower. In fact, government need to reduce its manpower drastically. That's the first rule, okay? The second rule is this. If you are going to then reduce your manpower internally, you're not going to hire more people, correct? You may have to let go of people. Therefore, your private sector becomes the engine of growth to your economy. That must be the way it is. It is not the government that becomes the engine of growth of the economy. It must be private sector. So you must stimulate the private sector. So the people that you say that are working in the government and they are efficient, if they are good and all that, they should be able to be absorbed in a vibrant economy. So if I want a vibrant economy, you know what I would do? One of the first things I would do is have more money in circulation, right? To stimulate the economic activity. This is the funny thing about governance, or one side of the finance. You've been a banker, If it's 24% corporate tax right now, why don't I cut it to 20% or 18%? Singapore is what, 17?
We are 28, I think.
24, 25.
Okay.
I'm not so
Singapore
sure anymore.
Singapore is at 17.
In the teens.
17, yeah.
Right. Okay. So you let the private sector be more liquid, right? So that they can invest and hire more people. And then if you really have really good people within the civil service that you let go, they should be able to find a job. Because why? Because they're capable. So that's the whole balance of things, right? You stimulate the economy, you reduce your welfare program. That's basically what it is. You reduce your operating expenditure and capital expenditure, including your GLCs. How much bailout have we done?
Yeah.
Right?
What
What do you say to that?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Maybe I can give some numbers.
Let's go numbers.
It's getting to be very expensive to
Right.
maintain our civil service. Here are some numbers now. The last budget that was presented is about 420 billion ringgits. 420 billion ringgits, of which the government revenue is only about 340 over billion ringgit. So there's a shortfall of about almost 80 billion ringgit. That's borrowing. Deficit is a deficit budget. That's a lot of money. And of this 420 billion ringgit budget, the operating expenditure is about almost 340 billion ringgit. Out of 420, 340 is operating budget. And of the operating budget, just the pensions and retirement charges alone is about 43 billion ringgit. That's a lot. And plus salaries and all that, about 26% of the budget goes towards taking care of the civil service salaries and payrolls and things like that. And the pensions are another 10%. So a lot of money is used up to pay civil service salaries and pensions in the tens and tens of billions of ringgit. All this, the 2026 budget was planned on oil at $70 a barrel. Oil is now at 59. I'm talking about West Texas Intermediate. West Texas is about 59 US per barrel. That's way below the 70 US per barrel that
it's going to go lower.
They're going to put in the budget. It's going to go lower, and the long-term view for oil price is not good. This is my view. I think oil prices, gone are the days of high oil prices, and the oil is shooting up everywhere. I think if you dig a hole in the backyard, you might get oil. Brazil is an oil exporter. Israel is a gas exporter. Who would have imagined? So the oil price of below 60 US per barrel, West Texas, is not helping our situation at all. There's going to be a bigger deficit.
Yeah.
And how are we going to pay all these salaries and pensions for a civil service? Again, as I said, which I know you don't agree too much, if the civil service is super efficient and they boost the country's GDP growth by 1%, 2 percentage points, because they work so hard, we can sustain this. That means they are part of the team. They are part of the team that is increasing the wealth and the productivity of the entire economy. They're really part of it. So they're not a burden now, they're an asset. So if they can generate that kind of efficiencies in the economy, I'm talking about just money. I'm not talking about my philosophy or your philosophy, just plain money. When you are efficient, you generate income, taxes, which you don't like, then it can sustain the civil service. But the fact is now, if our growth is not as great as how it should be, and our costs are going up, and our revenue, petroleum revenue is going down because of the lower oil prices, then the bloated civil service becomes more and more of a burden on us in terms of money, purely money. I'm talking about money alone. It's going to be unaffordable. And then when it becomes unaffordable, you find that the government has to cut corners and make cuts here and make cuts there because you have to keep paying such high salaries and pensions to the civil service. We're going to lose out. This has happened before in many other countries. They're called third world countries, and some of them are called failed states, where you do not allocate resources properly because of a bloated civil service, which sucks up too much resources, and there's less for other expenditure. Before I just wrap up at this point, you see on the revenue side, which I know you will agree, the revenue side, the main contributors to government revenue 2026, corporate income tax is the largest, about 103 billion ringgit, 30%, corporate income tax. Individual income tax, personal, is about 49-50 billion ringgit. That's another 14.3%. So 30 plus 14 is 44. Sales tax is almost 60 billion ringgit. Sales tax, another 17%. So what's that? 30, 44, 17, 61%. Is it? Yeah, 61% is from taxation, which is directly related to economic activity. as the economic activity in the country goes up, this is where you collect your taxes. This is the money you use to pay the civil service. This is the money you use to sustain the civil service. The famous petroleum revenue, right? It's only 12%. It's huge. It's a huge chunk. 12.5% at 43 billion is a lot of money. But out of a total budget of 420 billion, that petroleum revenue is actually just a portion. It's not major. We're not like Saudi Arabia. It's a portion. But we depend on that petroleum revenue. And now at oil at below 60 US per barrel, that revenue is going to get hit. So where is the money going to come from? You see, the money can only come from the other three: corporate income tax, individual income tax, and sales taxes. So now, if you are a civil servant, I hope the civil service is listening. Do you want to assist the economy, pay more income tax, and generate more income tax, generate more corporate tax, individual tax, and sales tax, or do you want to impede them from achieving maximum growth? And then you can send in the income tax department to go and squeeze out as much tax as possible from the people. That's the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
What you need to do is, I want to remind, well, Dr. Mahathir said this many years ago, the more business you have in the country, the more taxes the government collects. So you have to assist and facilitate business. The civil service is a job and the task and the sole responsibility of the civil service. I say sole responsibility because everything runs on the government. If they don't approve your application for your building project, nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no corporate tax, no income tax, no sales tax. They have to understand this. So if the civil service is going to be able to sustain itself, especially in a time where oil prices are dropping, oil revenues are going down, you have to go back on. There are four legs on this chair: corporate tax, individual tax, sales tax, petroleum revenue. There are the four legs that support this chair. They have to go back and improve the tax collection, and you only do that by making the country more efficient. You have to make sure that businesses can do business easily. Do not impede them. Do not put up obstacles for people who want to do business. And these regulations which you spoke about, ridiculous, useless regulations. How can I spend a whole day last time as a passport office waiting for my passport, or giving the run around?
That's not productive time.
All that costs money.
Yeah.
All that costs money, and when it costs money, it means less corporate income tax, less individual income tax for the government, less sales taxes collection by the government. People seem to have this some kind of it's a psychological thing that somehow we are a huge oil exporting country and that oil revenue will always save us. People have this kind of attitude. No, it's not. Oil revenue is only about 12% of our budget, and oil prices are going down. You're going to have to depend on those people who run businesses, people who do trade, and those who pay sales taxes. That is where the money is going to come from to pay the salaries of the civil service and keep the country functioning. They cannot impede that. The more they help business, the more they help businessmen do the things that businessmen do, and the economy to do things that the economy can do, increase productivity and output, the more healthy you are, the more the government's finances are. Depending on petroleum revenue is its history.
My take is this, actually. I think I don't know. I sometimes when I talk, people say I'm not being practical, but I've done it. So how is it not practical if I've done it in real life? Okay? If I were running the government, if I was running a ministry, or if I was the KSU or the Secretary General.
The KSN.
KSN.
Do you know his name?
I don't.
Neither do I.
Right? The Secretary General in charge of the Public Services Department, the Civil Service. I would go to the Prime Minister and I say, I want to cut my staff by my workforce by 30%. Straight away, I don't want to talk. You know why? Very simple. If you have that actually efficiency mindset, what you are thinking is, I need to save money for the rakyat. I need to save money. When you talk about the government are actually the people. So I want to save the people's money. That's the first thing I would do. Then I'm forced to actually deregulate because I don't have enough people. All right? I have I'm forced to deregulate. I'm forced to make things easier. That means I free that money that you quoted.
You don't need as much money.
I don't need as much money.
But-
If I need 100 million, now I only need 70 million.
Because you have less Napoleons.
Okay? All right? Less Napoleons and less soldiers.
Yes, correct.
Right? So, and then GLCs, I would privatize all the GLCs. I don't want any GLC anymore that is dependent on the government. Okay? And if you cannot perform and you don't, you bungkus. You shut down. Because why? The bailout is coming from taxpayers as well. No matter how you squeeze it, how you play around with it, okay? The GLC bailout comes at the end of the day, the receipt come at our table. Okay?
I have some thoughts on this. Can I say it?
All right, go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Yeah, you see, the government has got, in Malaysia, the government unfortunately is involved in a lot of micro issues, including running businesses. The government should focus on policy, macro issues. But today we're talking about civil service. Civil service is the operating arm of the government. They deliver the government services. Government is a service. Government should not get involved in products. So the civil servants, they are good at carrying out policies, implementing policies. They're good at standard operating procedures. Well, the passport office needs to buck up a little bit, but overall the civil service it functions. In my view, personal view, during the time of Dr. Mahathir, there were parts of the civil service or large parts of it were very efficient. Yes, because at that time they were developing the country at a breakneck speed, and the civil service was really efficient. They were helping the country grow. You mentioned during the time of Abdullah Badawi, the immigration office was very efficient.
Yeah,
it's
it
true.
was. It was impressive.
I remember in the 1970s, when I was a schoolboy in Penang, there was one DG or whatever, the Postmaster General. That fellow, he got letters delivered within Peninsula in one day. If you mail a letter in Penang, it will reach KL the next morning. And in Penang, I tested it because we mailed a letter in the morning and there was an evening delivery. It's unbelievable, that was in the 70s. So it can be done. It can be done, Just to digress a little bit, sometimes the efficiency of the civil service depends on who's in charge. It depends on a particular DG, Director General, or KSU, who is super efficient. I remember that one guy with a bow tie who used to run the road transport department. He became a shareholder of one of our airlines later. He was a very efficient guy. I think he also ran the passport office once, where he would close the doors and don't let the staff go home until all the passports were processed.
Yeah.
So everybody did work quickly, and all the passports were processed by
They needed to go home.
4:45 or whatever is the government time. So you have individuals like that. Today, 2026, I must mention our Minister of Housing and Local Government, YB Nga Kor Ming. In my opinion, because I do some property development, so I appreciate what he has done. He has really speeded up the approval of building plan approvals and building approvals and planning approvals for development projects. It is now down to like 21 days and 42 days. This is like unheard of, some time ago, I was building a house, a bungalow, and it took us 1 year to get approval. 1 year. That is if you are doing it on a large scale, and if you have bank borrowings, you'll go bankrupt. 1 year you have to pay interest, you have to pay your workers, you have to pay for equipment, and you can't use it, you can't get start work. You can lose your business. Now this is down to like 21 days and 42 days. And YB Nga Kor Ming is the Minister of Housing and Local Government. We also learned that despite land issues and being under state, but it is the Ministry of Housing and Local Government which pays the salaries of 151 local governments throughout the country, and they use that clout, to enforce good standards, and SOPs, operating procedures, and delivery to speed things up. So this is where an individual minister has made drastic changes in his ministry to the benefit of the entire country. What we need to project this throughout the civil service and not just depending on this particular minister, that particular minister. If he's no more around after the next election, what happens then?
Well,
this is the problem.
Well, I think if you remember, right, one of the biggest revolution that we had in Malaysia in terms of work culture, actually when Mahathir came to power, all right. Remember when he instituted
the punch card system, yeah.
So I mean, even simple things like that.
People didn't like that.
People didn't like that at all.
There was a lot of resistance.
Correct. But this is the thing about change.
Yes.
Change is uncomfortable. And change actually makes things more difficult for people who are trying to perform what they are used to doing.
Yeah.
Okay. But, it starts from the very top, if you ask me. So that's why when we look at governance, we have to look at who's at the very top. When things don't work, the question is at the very top.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the civil service, the way you talk about that, right, then it's a question of the civil service culture itself, the philosophy of the civil service. If we institute and we cap that is say, okay, I'm going to do, for a 5-year program, every year I'm going to cut 20%, 30% for the next 5 years. Just make that as a rule. Because why? As you rightly put, your income is lower. All right, on your natural resources. Okay, let's say you fix a target. You fix a target
by attrition.
Yeah.
You don't hire as many new staff. You don't have to fire people.
But at the end of the day, Syed, if you want to stimulate the economy, and really, I think people need to. We are so used to being taxed.
I mean, you are okay.
Our mindset. I'm sick about every end of the year when I look at the budget proposal, is there's always talk about new taxes or how to collect taxes.
Because the politicians don't think like you and me. The politicians do not understand how business, finance, and the economy functions. When they are in the job, when they are in government, they look at government and say, okay, the government needs revenue to do this, that, and this and that, which we are doing for you. Therefore, we have to collect taxes. They don't understand what you just said. You can also make money by reducing your expenses, by reducing the size of the civil service.
And you reduce your tax so that these people can make more money.
Yes, conversely, yes.
And then deliver you more absolute cash.
Yes. They don't seem to understand that reducing taxes actually can grow the economy.
Yeah.
They don't understand the concept. What do you mean by that? How does reducing taxes grow the economy? So you have to explain to them.
No, they're scared.
You have to explain that if I'm a businessman, I pay X million ringgit taxes a year, and you reduce it by 50%. So I'll take the 50% that I save. I'm not going to go to New Zealand or Switzerland for a holiday. I'm going to build another factory because I want to become richer. Therefore, I'll create more employment. They don't understand that.
Yeah,
they don't understand that.
Most true when you create a true economy.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at people like we want to plow back money into the business so that we can make more money. That's how it works.
They don't seem to understand that. They only go like, wow, you're going to be rich. You're going to make so much money. You're already rich. You're a rich person. Pay taxes. They do not understand that businessmen, every ringgit that a businessman saves, he's not thinking of how to spend it. He will spend some of it, but he's thinking of how to use that profit to grow his business.
Yeah.
And because he wants to make more money.
And when the business grow,
he creates more employment.
We employ
and
more
he'll pay more taxes.
Right.
He has to pay more sales service taxes. He has to corporate tax, income tax.
Don't add regulation.
They don't understand.
Cost us more money.
Correct.
To run our business. Don't impede businesses that it takes 9 months before I get regulatory approval to actually build a building or a factory or a plant.
They think Donald Trump is a guy with orange hair. They don't understand the other side of what Trump is trying to do. Basically, is to create wealth. and increase wealth in the community. But going back to this thing of the number of civil servants and reducing them, there are a couple of things. I feel that my view is that one way of what you mentioned just now, you have a program every year, you reduce it by X%. Some people suggested more drastic, and like reduce it by so many percent overnight. My suggestion is attrition. That means you don't hire as many, because every year the civil servants who retire, who pension off and they get retire. My suggestion is do not hire as many new staff. But before you can do that, because if you don't hire as many new staff, it's going to increase unemployment, especially among the Malays and the Bumiputras, because Malays and Bumiputras, they depend a lot on civil service for their income. Just now we mentioned total civil service population is about 2.6 million, including army and the military services. 2.6 million people are directly dependent on the government for their income. You have to multiply that by 4 for a family. Let's say a family of 4 or 5. You're talking about 10 million people or more who are directly dependent on the earning a salary from the government to sustain their families and their livelihood. So if you reduce the size of the civil service, it's going to be a political issue, because it'll increase unemployment among especially the Malays and Bumiputras who are so dependent on the government, including working for the government. So if you're going to do that, we have to grow the economy, so that the private sector economy, so that the private sector economy will create those jobs to absorb these people who are going to lose their jobs in the civil service, or who are not going to be employed by the civil service. So it's got to be a two-handed thing. You reduce the number of civil servants, you have to grow the economy to create more jobs. Otherwise, there's going to be a massive unemployment among Malays, especially in the states.
I mean, Syed, the whole idea.
You don't like it?
I don't like it. The whole idea that I have to create employment for the Malays within the civil service is so abhorrent to me.
The numbers are there. You cannot.
No, I agree with you.
There are 2.6 million people working in the civil service.
But here's the thing: the
in
fact
the government.
that we have artificially created this.
We've had babies,
right? So that it becomes an entitlement, when in actual fact, what we should do is a restructuring. If you ask me, what we should do is a restructuring of our economy, and therefore our civil service, because everything is interconnected.
What you said just now, cutting taxes and removing useless and silly regulations, it will lead to that growth in the private sector economy. Yeah, it will, which will.
Can I say this?
Yeah,
I want to get this out. I just cannot tahan anymore.
Go ahead.
The thing is, I've run companies. Half of my people are Bumiputras. Okay, that includes Sabahans and Sarawakians. All right. There was no issue about I have to take this because everybody I expect to be capable. So if I at the private sector can do that, why can't the government? Why does it have to be I have to get them jobs? Because they like the mollycoddling lah. The government likes to mollycoddle, because it's patronage.
Patronage. It's the votes, and it is a wrong concept. The politicians really do not understand the consequences of what they're doing, or whether what they're doing is good for them, votes. Because don't forget, which we have reminded our listeners so many times in the previous podcast, they lost the elections in 2018. And 2022 was a hung parliament. So you lose. You don't win anymore. You're losing the votes. So you have to think now, what all the things that you have done has caused you to lose power. You've lost your power because you did the wrong things. So change. So I agree, that you are suggesting very drastic cold turkey kind of treatment. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. But I feel that you can, by attrition is one. The other way is that while they are there, while the 2.6 million strong workforce is there in the government ecosystem, extract more out of them. What you said just now, reduce the regulations and work harder, produce more output, so that then the government's revenue goes up, not from petroleum revenue. Petroleum revenue is going to be history, from corporate taxes, income taxes, and taxes, sales and service taxes, which can then pay the salaries of the civil servants. But at the same time, we have to reduce the total numbers of the civil service, and at the same time, we have to increase the employment in the private sector, which again is in the hands of the civil service. You make things easy for the economy grows, your children will get jobs in the private sector, better paying jobs. You mess that equation up, it's your children who are going to be unemployed.
Hence, my KPI for the civil service would be how to reduce your number. Okay? My KPI for the Secretary General is reduce your number, reduce your regulation, okay? And work with less and faster.
And produce more.
Right? So, if you've got that philosophical mindset and you give them that target, it will naturally happen.
Yeah, but this is a political issue. It's not in the hands. It's not in the hands of the chief secretary of the KSN. It is not in the hands of the civil servants. This is in the hands of the politicians. They look at it. As a vote bank.
I mean, from a KSU or management standpoint, a natural animal of bureaucracy, whether it is in public sector or the private sector, is that the bigger my empire is, the more I get.
In the civil service, from what I hear, it is rare or next to impossible to fire someone for negligence or for non-performance.
Yeah, very difficult.
There are stories I hear.
Even in the private sector, our rules is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
I hear stories of like certain sections of the civil service. People are AWOL. They don't go to work. They're absent, and they still get paid. Pretty much not much disciplinary action is taken against them. They hardly get fired. So this is another thing about the culture and the attitude in the civil service that has to change. If somebody doesn't perform, somebody messes up, somebody screws up, they have to be punished. They have to be let go. There will be a stronger discipline in the civil service. Another issue I want to mention, frequently, in this country, frequently means it has made the headlines, where basically negligence by civil servants causes loss, financial loss to the government, preceded often by some kind of injury or physical injury or even death to people. Something happens, and where the government is involved or certain departments are involved, and people suffer loss. And then the people who suffer loss have sued the government for damages, and then they win. The court awards them damages. The most famous case is the one recently. The Pastor Ko's wife has been awarded millions of ringgit. There were cases where people have died because of I think there were situations were not properly handled. There was some security personnel who lost their lives, and I think the government paid some compensation. Basically, it was some kind of negligence on the part of the civil servants in that particular department or whatever, as a result of which the government had ended up paying compensation. Is there any disciplinary action taken against those civil servants? I know in the United States, if you're a captain in the Navy and your ship ran aground, or it didn't sink, you just ran aground or scratched a rock or somewhere, the captain will lose his job, and that's the end of his career. He will lose his pension. That's it. If you're a pilot in the Air Force and you damaged your aircraft, you're not going to fly anymore. So they're very strict. And same with their civil service. Whenever some civil servant messes up and the government is sued, and the government ends up paying money for the people who sued the government, there is disciplinary action taken against the particular civil servant. You are responsible, you see, because you messed up. The government ended up paying money.
There must be accountability.
Taxpayers' money.
Yep.
Here, no. Here, you have heard cases. It has come on the media where certain uniform services, and they somebody says, "I'm going to sue you." They go ahead, because it's not their money. They know if they get sued, the government will pay.
The government is paying for it.
They don't pay, and their jobs are secure. So they have this attitude. Now go ahead. So this is a very bad attitude, because this is the fault of the civil service. This is the fault of the leadership in the civil service. This is the fault of the political leaders in the country, that you do not discipline or takes strong disciplinary action or even fire civil servants who mess up in their job. We have to do this because that means discipline.
May I say this as well? Actually, it's also the fault in a large part of our own population. Okay? Because we elected these people. Alright? Okay? Guys, we elected these people. And not just that, we don't demand what is right. We bought into this whole idea.
We don't demand.
Yeah. We bought into this whole idea. I'm going to go back to this. I'm sorry, I got to go back to this because I'm so pissed off every end of the year when the government talk about increasing these taxes or doing e-invoicing in order to collect more money and costing businesses more money, and doing all sorts of regulation that cost businesses more money but no productivity. Guys, as citizens, we should demand the government to cut taxes. Why can't we do that one bloody simple thing? Demand the government to cut taxes so that the businesses that hire us can make more money and actually deliver more money and cut our government expenditure. Two simple things. Alright? And then everything follow through. Demand them to deregulate. Alright? So this is the thing. I'm very passionate about this because why? To me, it's a change in mindset. Instead of listening to politicians pitting us in a class warfare, oh, they are rich people, we need to tax them more. Dude, you tax them more, they have they don't have the surplus money to actually build more businesses to hire your children. Let's stop being stupid.
We cannot put up obstacles lah. That's a problem. It's an attitude. It's an attitude change that we need. And it is a confusion. They are confused about their attitude towards business.
No, we are also confused about the attitude about government. You know what Ronald Reagan said? All right, one of his famous quote is that, the government is not your solution. The government is your problem. If the government comes to you and say, I'm going to help you, run.
Well, I don't disagree with that. But here, frequently, this is true of a lot of third world countries.
Yeah.
The people who work in the government, the civil servants, sometimes they look at the people that they have to deal with, the rest of the country, as us and them.
Yeah.
It's not like we are all together on the same side of the team. No, it's like me against you or you against me. So how can I, make things as difficult for you as I can? Because otherwise you will what do you call this? Outwit me, or you will try to pull the wool over my eyes. So I have to be constantly vigilant. It's always like an enemy situation. They don't see it like, let's be partners, let's cooperate, let's work together, win-win situation, so that you benefit first. Because it's like running a restaurant, A guy walks into a restaurant, you have to serve him the best, your best service, quality of service, give him a nice place to sit down, the food must be good, charge him a fair price. That's it. Only then you get paid. If you mess up any of these equations, then you're not going to get paid. The guy will go to the next shop. Then you go like, hey, my business, I've gone out of business. We're bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same with the civil service. You have to serve the people, the businesses, the economy in the country. Only then your revenue goes up, and only then the civil service will remain healthy. They don't seem to understand that. This is a continuing problem in the civil service. I hope that there are changes for the better.
They have to think that they are there to serve the people. There must be a culture of public service where people are not coming to you to beg you to get approval. You are there to help them actually to be successful at what they need to do.
To facilitate.
They are
facilitators.
To make their life. The reason for you being in existence in a civil service is to make the life of the rakyat better.
Sometimes they get confused.
I
think they get confused.
I think somehow, just even the word, being in government really pisses me off. Because why? I don't want to be governed. I want you to be an administrator and actually facilitate for the people's welfare.
I'd like to say something about the another role of our civil service in nation building, especially in our country, where you have there is a need to bring up the Bumiputras. Remember earlier we spoke about the BCIC, Bumiputra Commercial and Industrial Community. I mean, all this is hand in glove, as I mentioned earlier at the start of this conversation, the civil service is it's an organized unit. It's a fantastic system that has been thought up by human beings, modern human beings, to have a civil service, organized civil service, to have bureaucracy. You departmentalize things to all geared towards achieving a common purpose, to produce results, to basically run a society efficiently, run a society, people. So that is the purpose of civil service. And such a civil service can also be an incubator to create a talent pool, experienced and professional talent pool in an economy, which you mentioned just a few minutes ago. You see, you have countries like Japan, the United States, that I can think of. Japan, United States, Singapore, and also Israel. The wrong country to mention, but and there are also other countries. But you see, in these countries, especially Japan and Singapore, the civil service is often at par or more efficient than the private sector, especially Japan. And in Japan, the Ministry of Finance, they are super efficient. And Singapore, I think all the civil servants are really efficient. I have had personal experience with Singapore civil servants. So the civil service, the civil servants go to work, they are more professional, they work very hard, their output levels are very high, and they become very skilled. So from the civil service, anytime they can move out and go into the private sector snaps them up.
Yeah.
Including in the United States and in Israel, especially United States. In the United States, if you served in any kind of a job in the civil service, especially a little bit senior position, you go out into the industry will snap you up. Because the civil service has got two major strengths. The first thing is they teach you how to work in a large organization, the SOPs, the general orders and things like that, how to set up an office, how to have the director in charge. Below him will have his senior officers, and then below that have the junior officers. Then you got the support staff. They know how to manage the whole thing, how to assign work, how to assign tasks, working out salaries, benefits and things like that. So they're good. The civil service is very good at organizing work, number one. Then they become content experts. If you are in the Ministry of Agriculture, you probably know your stuff about agriculture, about plantation agriculture, about fisheries, whatever. If you are in the Education Ministry or a department, you know things about schools, education systems. You are the content expert. So civil servants have these two great advantages. First of all, they are trained to work, to operate, manage and work in large organizations, which itself is a skill, and they are content experts. So if you do this well, the civil service, people who work in the civil service can be an incubator to create talented people like this, who then can be absorbed into the private sector. When I started banking in late 80s, I met some Malays, I must mention Malays, who were my seniors in banking, which means they were born in the 50s or late 40s, 50s. Old school like us. They went to school, they spoke English and things like that. They could write excellent reports, credit analysis, things like that. And they were senior bankers. But they started their career in the civil service. From the civil service, they were absorbed into private sector, including in non-Bumiputra banks, Because these were the people who could speak English, they could write. I was a credit officer.
They could structure their points.
In banking, basically, lending money in the banking. I used to lend money to people. You must write a credit report. They call it a credit proposal, so that your bosses will approve it. So you must be able to put things down properly, useful, proper sentencing and paragraphing and things like that. So the older generation guys were able to do this very well in English. In private sector is English. They were Malays, Bumiputras. But they started their careers in the civil service. We have lost that, I think. So the civil service should be that incubator for talent pool in a country, especially a country like Malaysia, where we have this thing of trying to move Malays, Bumiputras up in the social standing and the economic standing and things like that. The civil service can perform this role where Malays and Bumiputras are trained to compete, to be efficient, to be well versed in things, so that they can move into the private sector. They'll be absorbed. This is where it's not happening.
I want to throw out one thing about this demographic discussion about Bumiputra and how the civil service is, to me, it's been misused. If you ask me, it's been misused in terms of getting employment for so-called Bumiputra and putting it up. Because at the end of the day, our demographics is very simple. 60% Bumiputra. Okay? If I were running a company, I will have no choice but to hire Bumiputras at the end of the day, because I don't have enough within the demographic pool to say, I don't want to hire Malays. I don't want to hire Sarawakian Bumiputra or Sabahan Bumiputra. Cannot. It's just demographically impossible. So, if you take that kind of attitude, right, that the private sector, I've been in the private sector all my life, and I've seen Chinese-owned company that I know, and how many Bumiputras are there, and how many non-Malays are there, blah blah blah, right? It's all about the merit and capability that we train. When we talk about how we educate the Malay problems and the Malaysian problem, that's the root cause of it that need to be addressed. However, going back to the civil service situation, right? To me, the government need to make a decision that they need to act considering that the revenue pool coming from things like natural resources are not going to be there.
Nope.
Right? And we know that actually we are bloated. So what are we going to do? We have a budget deficit. We know that already. Right? Cut costs lah, buddy. You know? So, whilst I understand the current political situation, so to speak, in terms of how we have mollycoddled this particular segment of our demographics, right? We need a change. We need a restructuring of our society in which I don't understand why our leadership cannot be able to say to Bumis that they can succeed.
They have handicapped the people. The point you're making about the demographics need not really matter too much. Well, if you have, like in the old days, we had 8%, 9% growth, that kind of stuff, then the unemployment will go down drastically. And as long as somebody has 2 hands and 2 legs, they'll probably get a job, because when you have 8%, 9% high growth rate, everybody will hire everybody, regardless of what is your ethnic background, But when your growth drops and becomes sluggish, then people do tend to pick and choose who they want to employ. There are a couple of things now in the, I was talking earlier about how the seniors that I met in banking, they were graduates of the civil service. They could perform very well in the private sector because they were also very English, well versed in English conversant, meaning that they could communicate with any part of the world. We are still the top, number 17 or 18 trading nations in the world. We interact a lot with the outside world. And things like knowing what's happening outside the country, language skills, all these are very, very important. In our civil service, the last couple of decades or more, we have sort of built cocoons, in the civil service. The English proficiency has really gone down. I recall 5 prime ministers ago, which was not very long ago, this is what we heard, that they used to hire consultants to help write letters in English, because the civil servants can't do it in English, especially maybe if there were technical subjects or whatever. But nevertheless, they had to hire consultants to write those letters, which is a very sad thing, because this didn't happen before. Last time our civil servants were competent in English, and they could handle issues. They could carry themselves well at international forums and this and that, and they could handle contracts and things like that for the government. So they were more capable. We have lost that now because the traction in English has gone down. And I mean, it's nothing wrong to focus on the national language, but you must also be well versed in the language of international trade and English, So we have lost that part too. So as a result of which, again, it impedes the ability of civil servants to function in the real world, in the private sector. I call it the real world.
Yeah.
So they can only function within themselves inside the civil service, which means they become more.
It's a cocoon.
There's walls and barriers and things like that around them in the civil service. They can only function inside that system. They create their own reality, their own ecosystem. Outside it, they are like a fish out of water. So how are we going to? We're going to make the government an incubator, for example, of trained manpower. Our manpower, human capital. Capital. How are we going to make the government civil service incubator for human capital for the rest of the economy when the civil service is sort of restricted by issues like poor language skills? And then the other thing is the religious
here we go again,
the religious indoctrination in the civil service. I've been to government departments for early morning appointment. I went to a university once, for early morning appointment to see somebody, and I walked into this office, and the entire office was empty, and there was equipment, there was computers and stuff, and it's just empty at the appointed time. There's no one there. Then I thought, okay, I'll wait for a while, and I did wait. And after about 10 minutes, a bunch of people came out of a room, and they all started taking their positions at their tables. What had happened was that early in the morning, they have a religious prep talk, and pep talk, a religious pep talk, and this ustad's fellow, a religious teacher, had come in, and he was giving them a pep talk, So they had disappeared for like 10-15 minutes to listen to this pep talk. Then they start work. And I was thinking, it's on government time. You're on salary. You're being paid a salary using taxpayers' money. And then you're not at your desk, you are listening to a religious pep talk, number one. I mean, it's costing time and money, our money, The number two is, how does that help your productivity, or how does that help me?
It's a big fat zero, okay?
Now, how does that help me? I had to drive there.
Yeah.
I had to pay the toll, park my car, blah, 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 go there. And it's time spent. I'm going there and I have to wait 15 minutes for them to come out. How does that help me? How does it help the other people who go there to get something done? I really can't understand it. This is, to me, it is wastage. If they want to show commitment to, if they want to show, if they want to have these religious pep talks and this and that, be more committed. If work starts at 8 o'clock in the civil service, you come in at 7:45 on your own time. On your own time.
Yeah.
And not on salary time.
Yes.
And the religious teacher also has to come in on his own time, not on salary time.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's hired on a contract. I do not know.
But coming, I don't want any any taxpayer money to be coming out of that.
Come in on your 15 minutes earlier. Show your commitment to the religion. Come in 15 minutes earlier. Listen to the religious pep talk. I mean, if it's something that you like.
If it's so hard for you, you need to learn
some
more. Go ahead lah.
But 8 o'clock, be at your desk. At 8 o'clock, your salaries, the salary starts to run, which we are paying, taxpayers' money. Yeah. To me, isn't that a higher religious value?
Yeah. I used to remember, actually, my ustaz in Form 1 used to say, work is ibadat.
So you see, this kind of behavior doesn't make them competitive in the real world economy, not just in our country, but you're also competing with the rest of the world.
Talking about competing with the rest of the world, right?
This is inefficiency.
Correct. So, the growth rate, our economic growth rate, when you talk about how it's incubating and how, well, that's incubating is one thing, right? But the absorption of the of the private sector to be the engine of growth, That's the responsibility of the government.
That's
in
it.
order to stimulate that.
Yeah.
Right. So if we are looking at Malaysia at what, let's say the growth rate now lah, our leadership feels
Now
that
it's up,
rate
going to be 5 or
4
5.2.
5%. Guess what? The United States, which is the biggest economy in the world, all right, is looking at about 4.8 to percent the last quarter.
That's a solid growth for America.
Correct.
They usually do 2 to 3%
3%.
because they are developed economy.
They are a developed economy. So to me, it's like, dude, nothing to be proud of. You should be double their growth
No,
rate.
we should be in the 8%, 9%, 10%.
Correct.
That's it. We should be there consistently,
Consistently.
which we did a long time ago.
Yeah.
Which
So
we did.
in fact, I think if you ask me, if the corruption was not that bad, in those days when we were doing 8%, we should have been 16%.
We should have stronger. We should have much stronger growth rates because then it will help with this budget constraints and things like that. We're running a deficit budget, 80 billion, 70 billion every year. Last year also about there. Who's going to pay for all this?
Cut your cost, lah.
And then you see, the other thing is now talking about money. Now the government is saying that the cost of maintaining a large civil service and the cost of pensions is very high. So there's some debate now whether should there be a continued pension scheme for the civil servants, or should they all be put into the EPF kind of a system. I would strongly advocate that we move the civil servants into a EPF kind of a system, private or dedicated provident fund, pension scheme, which is not dependent on government revenue. Meaning that, like EPF, you take X percent of the salary of the civil servant, and the government pays a certain percentage, and that goes into a pool like the EPF, and it's run by an independent provident fund, a pension scheme. I would rather don't put the money into EPF, create another EPF. Well, we have a monopoly now in this country. Only one single large employees pension for private sector. We only have the EPF. We should create more provident funds, and they can manage the pension funds of the civil servants, so that it is out of the government's budget when the civil servant retires.
Then it is
right now it is until death, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pension, it's until death.
Then it also become incumbent upon the government then to ensure economic growth. Because why? If you don't have people that are working today that is paying forward for their retirement, right? And actually,
it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah,
you're right. It's a zero-sum game. We have to pay for the economy has to pay for the pensions forever, and then there's no growth, or there's rules, regulations, taxes going up. I think they really got the things screwed on backwards. They don't understand.
Yeah,
they really don't understand.
So, I mean, my advocacy of cutting taxes is because it has multiple impact on on regulation, on civil service efficiency, on actually controlling your budget deficit, and actually reducing your budget expenditure, and forcing you to become more accountable to what you spend.
I mean, I'm not against cutting taxes, but I really like for the government to reduce regulations, to remove obstacles, to remove ridiculous rules which do not add any value, to economic output, productivity. I don't want to use the word growth. Output and productivity. You stop somebody from doing what they should be able to do on their own. You are basically curbing economic growth, output, and then you start thinking, hey, how come our government revenue is slipping, And then the solution to that, let's tax them more. Let's tighten the screws, on their income tax collection. Go after them, chase after them,
and then structure their payback or their refunds, because the government got no money.
So that's totally the wrong way of going around things. The easier way is let the economy go where it should go by itself. Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Talking about get out of the way, actually, I just want to have a small anecdote. I wanted to say earlier, maybe, but when I first started working, actually, I was involved with the palm oil industry, and there were pilferage of palm oil on transport. All sorts of rules were put together so that, nobody steal the palm oil when it's being transported on the tanker, right? But actually the solution was actually quite simple. You lock at the point of where you weigh it, and you unlock it at the point of where it arrives, and the key is only with one person, the driver. All right? Any missing is you. Simple solution, right? Short of you being stopped there and being robbed, okay, then you have to make a police report, right? You are totally responsible, that one guy. See, you don't need regulation.
Yeah, correct.
So that is where I talked about. I keep the philosophy I go to when I was working for a big corporation.
Yeah.
Is to actually, when you look at a problem, you actually rip apart the whole system and see how do I make it simple.
And the professionalism, the civil service has to be the spearhead of professionalism, efficiency, modernization, for the whole country, because every day the public meets the civil service somewhere, either at the hospital, in the school, when you talk to the school teachers are civil servant, when you go to the immigration office for your passport, when you go to the police station, the hospital, everywhere you meet the civil service, they should be professional. I have been to government departments where the staff bring their children to the office because they had some problems. Maybe there was no babysitter, or the childcare was off on the day. I don't know, but they brought the children to the office, and they with their milk bottles and little blankets and things like that. So
wow, that sounds very third world to me.
Very third world, third world. And I think it was quite a regular occurrence at that place. This was many years ago, but I did notice that. This is where the professionalism has gone down. We have to constantly strive to make sure that the civil service is super professional, top of the line. They should be at the forefront of introducing new ideas in the country, in the economy, which is what happens in other countries, especially Singapore. It is a civil service that creates a lot of new thinking in the economy. They are constantly experimenting. And China, don't forget China. So they are the spearhead of introducing new thoughts, new things, new formats, whatever, in the country. And then
new regulation.
Not new regulation. And then the private sector catches on. So here I see that role. I don't know exactly where that role is, but it's not too great. As I said, I've seen kids running around the government department.
But, to wrap it up, right? And that's why I keep emphasizing. I think both of us coming from the private sector, we must think of the public sector as a service provider, right? Its customer is the ordinary citizen, that they must make their life faster and does not burden the citizens. That's the mindset that it has to have, and therefore I really come back to this at the end of the day. You need to be able to do more with less money. Yeah. I don't know, Syed, you have any last words?
I feel that the civil service can be a huge asset to the country. They can be they are already there. They have the organization, they have the structure. I mean, it's been there for 60 over years. They know what to do. They just have to be super professional about it. They have to be efficient about it. The constant thing that the civil service has to bear in mind is you are a facilitator to make this economy grow. You cannot be an obstacle. You cannot be an impediment. You cannot obstruct people from doing things, number one. And number two, more importantly for them, their self-interest. If you do the number one well, you collect more money. The government collects more revenue. And then you get paid more salary. Your pensions are safe, secure, and things like that. Yeah. So the first thing is you must be facilitator of the economy. Every time you say no to somebody, or you delay somebody, come back tomorrow, come back next month, or the approval will be 6 months from now, that's that much less revenue coming into the government somewhere in the system. that much less revenue coming into the government to pay your salaries and sustain the civil service. They must understand this. Okay.
All right. With that, thank you so much, Syed. We and everyone who joined us. Let's subscribe, as we said, and comment, please. We quite love the engagement we are seeing on the channel these days, and we get more people to join into watching and commenting, and let's build a community that can change the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you.